glad to hear everybody's still chatting away. That's fantastic. We just thought we'd wrap things up. You're more than welcome to hang out. There's still coffee and snacks over there, so by all means, help yourself to food and network and talk to some people. My name's David McDonald. I'm the director of the Municipal Services Project and professor at Queen's University, which is a couple hours down the road here towards Toronto. Just a few words of thanks and then some closing comments. First, just want to thank the speakers. We were out at dinner last night and someone said, how do you think it's going to go tomorrow? And I said, it's either going to be really interesting or a complete disaster. I think the really interesting, really interesting. It was honestly one of the most interesting selection and eclectic selection of speakers I've seen in an event in a long time. I'm going to comment on Tom's role in that in a minute. But so, not only thanks to that incredible wealth of embedded knowledge and live history and intellectual thought, but also just getting here and the planes and trains and automobiles that requires. So thank you very much to all of the speakers, and just give them another round of applause if we could. And also to the attendees. We've had people from all over Canada and the States, and actually just a shout out to our American friends. We often look down in horror across the border these days, and so it's so exciting to look across in excitement, and I know that's always the case, that the United States is one of the most diverse and eclectic places on the planet, and it will save itself, I have no doubt. So we're just really delighted to have that, and it's really inspiring, I think for many Canadians to see the grassroots activity that's going on down there. So a special thanks to Adrian Murray, who really did a lot of pulling this stuff together, running around today, and he'll be in touch with you for anyone who's claiming expenses and that kind of thing, so his work's not over. Danica and Karina for facilitating this. I think this worked well. Rather than just talking heads, I think engaging with each other, and so hopefully you enjoyed that. And Danica and Karina did a great job of that. Veronique, Claire, and Dominica for herding us into the room this morning. Thanks for your work on that. And really a special word to Tom. Tom's been working in the sort of in the wilderness on public banks for a long time. Known him for, I don't know, at least 10 years now, and I was like, what, public banks, what the heck? And so, I think finally his work is getting recognized. It's not just, it's the last few years at least, but he, I think his book is the most important statement, progressive statement on public banks. And I just want to say, Tom, thanks for everything and organizing this really fantastic slate of speakers today. So Susan said a couple things about the Municipal Services Project. We've been around since 2000. We spent the first sort of 8 to 10 years of our existence critiquing privatization, and basically it was just depressing, but just got really boring. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's just so easy to critique what privatization does. So we started to say, well, we know what we don't like, what do we like? And that's actually a really challenging question. So, it's not easy, it's not difficult rather to find bad public services. And that's true of bad public banks, right? The state-owned banks are financing the invasion of Ukraine. State-owned banks finance the slave trade. There is a lot of horrific history of public banking. So, the challenge is, how do we identify what constitutes a good public service? Is there some kind of perfect public entity? Absolutely not. We saw today, the scale of different sizes of banks, and the different ways of governing things and so on. There's no single model, but we work with a kind of normative framework of values around equity orientation, transparency, accountability, useful kinds of reference points that we use in our work to look at public services. And for me, a public bank is just another public utility. It's like a water utility or electricity utility. And I think what we want to do with our work and with this conference is demystify public banks. Take it away from the finance and MBA types who think that they have some God's gift to understanding what finance is. And it's something that everybody can understand at every level, because every single day people are dealing with their personal finances. Now, it gets a little more tricky when we're talking about multi-billion-dollar investments in infrastructure and so on, but that that difficult to do. So I think this demystifying of public banks and finances in general is something that we want to try and do with our work in the future. And it's going to be a challenge in the Canadian context. You know, we have a very neoliberally oriented society. And, you know, trying to talk about these things is difficult. And, you know, most people will just say, what the heck's a public bank? But I think what we want to do is politicize these things. They are political entities. And to try and say that finance is non-political is the exact wrong way to go about it. It has to be political. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with them being boring. I finished some work, and Tom rolls his eyes because my first real intervention with public banks was in the Scandinavian countries, and it was dead easy. Everyone was friendly and forthcoming with all the information. A lot of public banks, it's hard. We tried to get the Canada Infrastructure Bank here today. Zero engagement. They did not have, we do have people from the BDC here today, but most public banks are very opaque and closed shop. So anyways, what I was going to say about the Scandinavian banks is they're remarkable in what they do. But they're totally boring and nobody knows anything about them, and then maybe that's a good thing. But they are politicized at the same time. So, you know, this notion that public banks shouldn't be political is completely wrong-headed. These are deeply political institutions. We just need to make sure they have the kinds of politics that make sense for engagement and around transparency and equity orientation, et cetera. So Danica, I see, is posting up notices. We had some, at least the tables I was at, some really great conversations. I'm not going to attempt to summarize those things right now. We're going to take some photos of those things. We're going to collate those things. And we will be sending out, you saw Connor and his colleague here videoing this. We're going to have all of the speakers' individual presentations and then a kind of promo summary of things that will sort of hopefully entice people into thinking about public banks. And that'll all be posted on the MSP website, and we'll be circulating that information around to people. So, you know, from what I've seen there, there's some really interesting stuff. So our next steps are really, we don't know. We didn't come to this with any pre-vision for what we do next beyond hoping that we'd started, or not started, but can, you know, help to advance the conversation. We'd certainly encourage communication, networking here. I've already had a few comments or conversations with people about collective collaborative research. We will continue to do work we're doing on different sectors in the economy. Globally, we're working right now in Asia, Latin America, and Africa on public banks financing public water operators. One of our publications over there on public banks financing public water in Europe. And by the way, please take those books. I don't want to have to take them home with me. So whatever you want, take away, please. And we're also going to look at other, not other sectors as well, the energy sector, transportation, et cetera, but also thematic areas, gender issues within banks, both on the governance front as well as, you know, what does lending look like that's you know, gender oriented. Looking at indigenous communities. We're actually going to be doing some work on the Islamic banking movement and what does that look like and what is Islamic banking, et cetera. So if you're interested in collaborating with us, reach out, and you know, if you've got a we'd love to hear about it. Okay, so that's it. The next steps are to have fun. And as Rosa Luxemburg said, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. So we have dinner at Chez Lucien at 6. I think if everybody comes who said they're coming, we're going to overwhelm the place, but that's great. And then there's some jazz at the Rainbow Bistro if you can't come for dinner or if you want to join us afterwards for that. So thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll stay in touch.